In Elder Oak's most recent General Conference talk, defending the divinely inspired Constitution, he talks a little bit about agency. He says that God has given his children moral agency, the power to decide and to act. The most desirable condition for the exercise of that agency is maximum freedom for men and women to act according to their individual choices. Then the revelation explains every man may be accountable for his own sins in the day of judgment. Therefore the Lord revealed, it is not right that any man should be in bondage one to another. This obviously means that human slavery is wrong. And according to the same principle, it is wrong for citizens to have no voice in the selection of their rulers or making their laws. So there's a couple of interesting points. One, it's saying that he's essentially equating the lack of representation to slavery. If you don't have a choice in selecting your rulers or making your laws, he's equating that to bondage, being in bondage to whoever is in charge of doing that. So I think that that's an interesting point, that in as much as people can't get their voices represented in the government and making laws or anything, then that means that they are in bondage. So that's an important point. But something here that I think is important to point out is that even if you are in bondage, you still have moral agency. He begins talking about moral agency, and you can still choose and act morally, even if you were in bondage, even if you were a slave or you were in jail. You can personally act in a way that is moral and make choices that will lead you closer to God, and choose to follow God over following the devil. It's just that those choices might not have an impact, as strong of an impact on your life or on society. And so that's why they say the most desirable condition for the exercise of that agency, because the consequences of those choices, at least in the temporal, in your mortal life, might not be as connected. So if you choose to worship, that's a good choice, but if you were living in an oppressive regime, you might get punished for that. So the consequence doesn't match the choice. Similarly, if you choose to do something evil and it's a legal thing and it's supported by the government, or even the government tells you to do something bad, morally wrong, then the consequences of that choice doesn't really connect as easily to the moral implications of that choice, at least during mortal life. I think God, even if you were in slavery, and even if someone's holding a gun to your head and saying you need to sin in some way or do something bad, I think that when you do that people, I guess what I'm saying is that you still have a choice to make, and that God will reward you in the eternities when you make that choice. But the people will be less accountable if they make poor choices because their life was threatened, versus they're making poor choices because they want to make bad choices.